the most democratic, and usually the richest countries are those that have a former colonial British inheritance.
You're inflamed about this, aren't you?
Because people died. You're a liar. You're actually lying about your facts.
Well, I'd love to have a longer discussion where I can expose the nonsense that you're spouting.
In this video, we are going to watch British historian Rafe Hadel-Manku completely wipe the floor with an emotionally charged, unhinged and divorced from reality Narinder Kaur on the topic of British colonialism. So to start this off, they're going to read out a quote from Big Johnny Howard, who was a former president of Australia from a better time. So with that, let's get into it.
Sensitive one. John Howard, he used to be the Prime Minister of Australia. Well, he's sparked a lot of debate because he has described colonisation as
the luckiest thing that's ever happened to his country.
Okay, now just think about that, and if you're Aboriginal or whatever, you may have a completely different view of that. But he praised Britain for being a... let me see what he praised Britain for there. Sorry, don't we get so excited there. About being the most benevolent imperial power compared to other European colonisers.
Well, the question today that we're asking is it time for Britain to stop apologising for its colonial past? Well, Rafe Hadel-Manku says that former British colonies are some of the most successful countries in the world.
But Narinder Kaur says that colonisation was never a good thing. So, good morning. Very nice to see you both. But Rafe, you are a child of empire, and my friend, I mean, you're from Kenyan Indian descent. And you think, you're proud of that, and you think that was a good thing?
Absolutely. I mean, look, we have to speak facts here. Colonialism and capitalism together lifted more people out of poverty in the world than any other two forms that we have here. Wherever you go in the world, particularly British colonialism, every region of the world, the most successful, the most democratic, and usually the richest countries are those that have a former colonial British inheritance. That applies to the Americas, South America, Africa, Asia, and elsewhere. And there's a reason that Canada, Australia, and New Zealand always rank amongst the 10 best countries in which to live, and that's because of their colonial inheritance. You know, the army, the military, schools, universities, hospitals, the infrastructure of government, the civil service, all of that is due to the British inheritance. And if you look around the world, it's impossible to say that the countries of Africa and Asia and elsewhere would have had the evolution towards democratic legislatures and stable countries were it not for colonialization.
Well, it's an interesting statement. It's a brave statement. Narinder is, there's steam coming out of her ears.
There really is. I mean, Rafe, you sound quite mad. I mean, I don't know where you get your facts from.
Well, for history books, you should try to read one once in a while.
Rafe enjoys little verbal barbs almost as much as he enjoys high tea and a scone, followed by a nice stroll through the fields of Northumbria. But of course, I completely agree with his more logical and less emotional analysis of history. If you just think about it, it's fair enough to say that obviously conquest is wrong, especially in modern times considering the context of modern world politics. But throughout history, the name of the game was conquest. Most major civilizations sought to grow their empire, and the way that they would do that would be to take the land by force and kill everybody in the most brutal ways possible. And then you look at the British Empire, a more modern empire, and one that went about it in a very different way. For all the bad and all the wrong, they didn't just come and pillage everything. They started to invest in the places that they colonized. They built civil infrastructure. They implemented common law and civic institutions. And they helped these cultures to alleviate some of the more unnecessary cultural practices that they had been practicing. Look at where I'm from, for example. In Australia, it was the British who came and planted the flag. They installed the institutions that have made Australia the great country that it is today, and I, for one, am grateful for that. There are many people around the world who obviously aren't happy about that, and that's fair enough. But find me a similar event in history where everybody leaves the table feeling satisfied. I'll wait. But the more important part, it's pretty obvious that it was a net good. The more places there are in the world, like Britain and Australia, where everyone wants to come and live, the better.
I don't know which history books you're reading, but they're not correct, because you're talking about benefits to who? Self-indigenous people and people who were colonised. Actually, I call colonisation genocide. Let's speak facts. Your facts are actually British colonisation, genocide, killed...
Genocide is a very difficult word to say.
I'll let you speak. killed hundreds of millions of people. It's murder. There's a legal liability here. They killed hundreds of millions of people colonising the world. And actually, I don't like this argument, Eamon, that actually it was in the past, because you said that in the break, that actually it's in the past, let it go. The ramifications of colonisation are still felt today. Aboriginal people are still the poorest in health, education. An Aboriginal teenager is more likely to go to prison than university.
I'll tell you what I think. I mean, it's very controversial. I mean, I'm from Ireland, and, you know, colonisation there, we still live with today. It's not... I totally understand her into your argument there, but part of me says, look ahead, stop looking back. We can't change the past.
How can you look ahead when you're still suffering? People who were former slaves, their families are still suffering.
No one is suffering from colonialism.
Poor.
Come on, Narinda, you're spouting nonsense. Firstly, hundreds of millions of people...
Hundreds of millions of people were murdered. Rafe, you don't know your facts, and I feel sorry for you.
Narinda may be saying, everything you said may well be true, but Narinda basically is saying, it wasn't worth the price that was paid.
Well, it's absolute nonsense. Firstly, there's no... Excuse me, it's now my turn to speak.
Guys, I don't know how to tell you this, but I recently discovered that my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother was a minority. And I know what you're thinking, so I guess now I'm a victim. But the good news is, guys, if you like this video, if you subscribe to the channel, then you'll be helping to support minority causes. And ultimately, you'll be an ally to victims like myself. Back to the video.
Thanks so much. Hundreds of millions of people did not die underneath the British Empire.
Yes,
That's complete nonsense. Also, life expectancy for Aborigines for thousands of years had been 40 years of age. You know, they were a Stone Age Paleolithic culture when the British arrived there.
So
they now have life expectancies of 70 years, 30 years longer.
No, that's not correct either.
I'm sorry, I'm giving you the absolute facts here.
Their life expectancy is decades less than white Australians.
And there are many reasons for that, but it's not due to colonialism. Their life expectancy increased by 30 years in 200 years. After tens of thousands of years, it was 40 years. I'm terribly sorry, but you need to go back and do some research.
No, you don't know your facts, because actually colonisation or genocide has put Australians, South Indigenous people, behind hundreds of years.
Everywhere you go.
Put Indians back hundreds of years. You're not right in anything.
Excuse me, under the Raj, the British population...
You can't actually say that because Britain made some trains and we did this and we did that. We did great. You did it for your own benefit.
The Indian population...
The only thing that benefited colonisation was British, their pockets. You lined your pockets on the backs of Indigenous people.
Narinda, I will guess that the general audience that's listening and watching us today will respect what both of you are saying, but they'll say you're losing the argument because he seems very calm about this, and you rightly probably, so you're inflamed about this, aren't you?
Because people died at the hands of British government and the British monarchy.
All right, I'm sorry, can I just interject here?
Let me finish now.
Well, you've spoken for quite a while,
People died, Eamon.
Right.
Hundreds of millions of people died.
Hundreds of millions of people, hey? Wow. I would be really interested to know where she got those statistics from. I can only assume nowhere, because she doesn't really strike me as the kind of person who's sitting around in her spare time fervently studying history, literature, philosophy, and Rattlesnake TV to keep herself armed and dangerous. And notice at the start, she did that thing that scorned ex-girlfriends tend to do when she goes, Rafe, you seem really angry. If there's one thing that we can all safely say that Rafe doesn't seem, it's angry. He looks like he's about to have a hit of croquet and then listen to some Beethoven whilst drinking scotch with a few jolly chaps from the North Shropshire village of Hodnett.
Thanks so much.
But seriously, imagine the audacity you would have to have, the pure gall, to yell at a historian on national television, telling them that they don't know their facts while just spewing complete and utter shite out of your mouth, in the hope, of course, of getting yourself some attention. But I think that I know her strategy in this debate. Pure projection. Accuse him of everything that you're doing, and then also add in some emotional words like genocide.
Okay, how do you respond to that?
Under the Indian Raj, the population of India increased from 170 million to 450
20 million died in the Bengal famine.
The whole cyclical famines of India ended because of British storage techniques and malnutrition projects.
You're actually lying about your facts.
Well, I'd love to have a longer discussion where I can expose the nonsense that you're spouting here. Also, the British advanced women's rights in India. The history of women in India is one of oppression. The British banned sutti, the burning of widows on the funeral pyres. The British stopped the infanticide of girls, and the British allowed Hindu women to remarry.
You in 1919. You shot dead.
You wouldn't be here enjoying the lifestyle you are were it not for the Britain's great advances for women. I'm terribly sorry.
Rafe, what you're saying is, because Britain, the great British Empire, we went there and we advanced social justices and all that. Therefore, I'm lucky. I'm not lucky if my ancestors were murdered at the hands
Your ancestors are also my ancestors. We're both Sikhs, all right? So don't speak as if you have complete domain over this. All right?
I'm not lucky.
You are absolutely lucky.
Aboriginal people are not lucky because of British colonisation. British colonisation was genocide.
I'm saying as a woman, as an Indian woman, you are lucky because of colonisation, because your life would not be as...
I live in a country where I face racism. I could have been back home, and actually India could have been richer. Thankfully, we are richer now. Thankfully,
India is one of the world's 5 most racist countries. I'm terribly sorry to break it to you.
Quote Narinder, I could have been back home. And by back home, she means back in India. So Narinder here is clearly oppressed because she is super duper Indian. It sounds as though she was until very recently making a living by driving a rickshaw in Bombay. In fact, she probably just assimilated so well and so seamlessly that now she just happens to sound like she's about to hit the club with the entire crew of Geordie Shore.
I am a Geordie girl.
Well, actually, you'd be surprised to know that she is the child of immigrants who came to the UK in the 1950s. Narinder is 50 years old, meaning that her parents had already been in the UK for 20 years by the time she was even born. The mental gymnastics that some people have to go to find a way to be a victim is at times astonishing.
Wealthy, handsome, multi-talented, Grammy Award-winning victim.
Narinder genuinely would not be able to tell you the difference between a chicken tikka masala and a papadam. This is somebody who has spent their whole life and gotten opportunities in a country that they are now shitting on. To get up on national television like she is now and give her low IQ opinion. And she probably got paid for it. A country where she gained notoriety by being on a reality TV show, Big Brother. Something that requires no skills. How can you sit there and be incensed and claim to be a victim? It astonishes me. Absolute clown world, ladies and gentlemen. So guys, hit those links, top of the bio, in the comments. Come find me on all the socials. And if you guys want to watch another video, click right here. Until next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV, keeping you armed and dangerous.